there's a couple different reasons to care about the subject. One, specific to Sweden and Swedish society, is that the Eurasian lynx is actually the only big cat native to Sweden. It's one of Sweden's top predators, and so people can feel a real connection to the lynx and feel a real national pride knowing that they have lynx essentially out in their backyard. You can very infrequently, but if you're lucky, you can see them actually, and knowing that the Swedish wildlife is doing well is a source of pride for Sweden. Another more broadly applicable reason that people should care is that, as many of you know, as I'm sure you know, there's a lot of deforestation activities happening around the world, and a lot of big cats and especially other large, wide-ranging mammals are very threatened. And the Eurasian lynx is a great success story. Actually, it was hunted almost to extinction in the 20th century, and now their population is stable and more or less growing here in Sweden. So hopefully we can learn some lessons here in this heavily human-modified landscape where our wildlife is doing so well before it's too late for some of its other cousins.
But I mean, I'm living here in Sweden and I have never seen a lynx. Are you sure they're out there?
Yes, I'm very sure. One of the reasons is actually, as part of our study, I'm taking part in a long-term collaring study, and what that means is that we actually have, over the course of 20 years, we've had 146 lynx fitted with radio collars or GPS collars, so we can actually track where they are and where they go and what habitats they spend most of their time in.
And what have you found? Where do they hide?
Well, so far our results are very preliminary, so I can't say too much about it, but we're finding our preliminary results are much in line with previous studies that have shown, of course, that they like to hide in the forest, as is not a surprise to any of us, I don't think, that they avoid humans to a large extent. I expect to find actually that they like to stay in the forest, but maybe near open areas, because their favorite prey is the roe deer, which inhabits more open areas in some cases. But it's a little bit early to tell.
There's, of course, also people who are afraid of predators and also see them as competition when it comes to hunting. What is your message to those people?
Yes, well, in terms of human safety, the lynx are safe they coexist with us. Most people, as you said, never see them. If one sees you in the forest, it will run away. It's very, very rare that a lynx would attack a human. And even if that were to happen, they are quite small. It would be very unusual for that kind of encounter to be dangerous to the person. In terms of competition for hunting and farmers as well, that is a concern by many members of the public here in Sweden. And in terms of hunting, the hunting bag numbers for roe deer are very well monitored by the hunting districts every year, and there's a lot of population models of both lynx and I believe also of roe deer that inform hunting policy to make sure that Swedes will be able to continue their hobby of hunting.
So they're not dangerous to me, I can give you that, but what about my dogs and my cats?
Yes, dogs and cats are very rarely targeted by lynx. I can't tell you the numbers really. It does happen though that they take lambs or other livestock. For that reason, there's a compensation scheme that's administered by the government. I don't know a lot of details about it, but if you have livestock that's been taken by a predator, there are specialists from the Wildlife Damage Center that works very closely. I know some colleagues from there in my office who will come out and assess what species of predator actually took your livestock, and then based on that you do get compensation from the government to make sure it doesn't impact your livelihood. Yeah.
So if I want to see a lynx, where in Sweden is it most likely that I would see one?
Oh, that's there's a lot of lynx actually across this whole kind of central belt. Outside of Uppsala, actually, there is an established lynx population. If you go just a couple hours west and a little bit north, we know that there are lynx in those forests, but in terms of actually seeing one, you'd have to be extremely, extremely lucky.
What time of day? Is there any hints, any tips you can give us?
In terms of time of day, that's something that I haven't looked at yet in my models. I will be looking at when they're more active, or indirectly I'll be looking at what types of habitat they prefer at different times of day. But most cats are active at various times during the day and night, but mostly are crepuscular, which means they're active around sunrise and sunset. I believe that there has been work on lynx showing in the past that is their activity pattern, and also later at night. But you could happen to see one at any time, and I don't know a lot of detail on that.
Tell me a little bit more about the goal with your work. Say 5 or 10 years from now, what do you hope to achieve with your work?
Well, what we hope to achieve is, as I mentioned already, the lynx were hunted almost to extinction last century, and as they recolonize, there have been models made showing a certain population that would be reached in certain areas of Sweden by certain times, and it looks like there's actually fewer lynx in the south of Sweden than we expected, and they're spreading more slowly than we expected also, and we want them to be able to recolonize this entire area. So I'm going to be looking at what barriers might be hindering them, what might be preventing them from establishing new territories. So hopefully, as we learn from that, we'll be able to influence management policy to be able to facilitate the recovery of the population.
Okay. And just as I got this right, the base of your work, the material, is grounded much around the colors, the what do you call them, the radio colors. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what you use for basically for your studies, or do you also use just observations, or?
I don't actually use observations. There is observation data that I might use in the future, that the county administrative boards actually keep a lynx census every year. Okay. But I'm at the moment not working with that data. Something else that I'll be doing in the future is I'll actually be using genetic samples from animals that have either been hunted or killed on the road or found dead that are kept by the Swedish Veterinary Association, to look from a genetic point of view at the health of the population and to see if we can learn more about their spread and their establishment that way.
There's been a debate about inbreeding when it comes to wolves, for example. Do we have the same problem in lynx?
That's something I can't tell you yet, but after we do our genetic work, I should have some insight into that. I would expect that it won't be as bad with the lynx, or as severe with the lynx, I should say, as it is with the wolves, but that's just my expectation at this point. We don't know yet.
How common is the lynx in other parts of Europe? Is it more common here in Sweden or less common?
I don't know about saying more or less common, but there are populations in Europe that are doing very well, that are actually the result of reintroductions. So in the Jura Mountains in Switzerland, for example, the lynx were reintroduced a few decades ago, I believe, and have established a stable population that has spread. But there have been other introductions on the continent that have not gone as well, and that the populations are really struggling. But it really depends on the location. And then, of course, there are a lot of areas in Europe that no longer have large contiguous forests that the lynx seem to need. So they have disappeared from a lot of their previous range, but their local populations, many of them are doing very well.
And the Spanish lynx is another story. We will not get into that. They are trying to reestablish that one as well.
Yeah, that's actually a different species. It's very, very closely related, but they're unfortunately under a lot more severe threat than our lynx here.